term, you've got 80 months left. So you need to make an impression if you haven't already. Time is running out. But you've been doing very well, so yeah, halfway. Welcome to the meeting of the council meeting of Wednesday the 6th of March, and welcome the councillors, staff, media, members of the public in the gallery and at home. We do have a public forum this afternoon. We'll get on to that after we've called for apologies. I think everyone is here. Extraordinary business, I know of none. There's none. Declarations of interest in today's agenda. None. Public forum, we have the Historic Places Mid Canterbury here, and welcome Nigel and Maxine. If you'd like to come to the table up here, you can tell us what you would like to tell us, and then councillors will ask questions of you for clarification or of yeah. So the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes. Welcome. Just put the light on to the right hand button there, Maxine. That's it. And Nigel, you'll be the same when you need to talk. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr Mayor, councillors and ladies and gentlemen. While we're very pleased at the Council's response to and attention to detail with regards to the Ninking Market Gardens and Pioneer Hall, we are extremely concerned that the Council is considering reversing a previously agreed decision to refurbish the Balmoral Hall. We understand that this work was publicly consulted on, agreed, costed, and money set aside in its annual budget as part of the previous long-term plan. Why wasn't this refurbishment done when scheduled and budgeted for in 2022? Now, because this work has not been completed within the prescribed timeframes, there's a very real possibility, it seems, that this much-loved and well-used community facility may be lost. Balmoral Hall is the last remnant of one of Ashburton's earliest educational facilities. Built in 1936 as an assembly hall for the Ashburton Technical School. Following Ashburton College opening or abandoning the site in 1974, it's been used as a community hall, originally from the Ashburton Scottish Society, who renamed it Balmoral Hall. The hall's been used by many organisations over the years for exhibitions and competitions. It's also been hired regularly for birthday parties, weddings and other functions. A dance school has operated in the hall for over 40 years, delivering young people of Ashburton the discipline and pleasure of dance. This venue is greatly appreciated by the dance community, particularly for its wonderful sprung floor. Dance Works, as it is known now, currently operates in the hall 6 days a week, with 2 classes being held simultaneously in the available space, 2 spaces in fact, and they teach on average 200 students at a time, not each day, over a week. Historic Places Mid Canterbury has researched the history of Balmoral Hall, and in our view this building is a strong candidate for inclusion in the Council's heritage schedule. The heritage schedule is due to be updated as part of the current district plan review process, and this building would be nominated for inclusion on the heritage schedule. The cynic in me might suggest that this is perhaps one of the reasons why Council is currently considering offloading the building.
Thank you, Maxine. Kia ora koutou, everyone. This comes soon after, soon after the demolition of Cavendish Chambers, another council-owned building that would also likely have been added to the heritage schedule had it not been demolished in January. It doesn't paint a pretty picture of the council's respect for heritage of the buildings that it owns. Like Cavendish Chambers, the rationale given by the council for disposing of Balmoral Hall is that it seems too costly to maintain. Previously, $484,000 had been set aside in previous LTP and annual plan budgets to bring this building up to scratch following years of deferred maintenance by council. But the work was not completed within that LTP period, as had been promised. Now we are told that it will require $1.3 million to refurbish the building. How can that be? An increase of over 250% in just 2 years. There is no earthquake strengthening required for this building. It is not defined as earthquake prone and it is not listed on the earthquake prone building register. So why the massive increase in refurbishment costs? Again, the cynic in me might suggest that this is just some creative accounting on the part of the council in order to get the public to support its preference to get rid of Balmoral Hall. Balmoral Hall is surrounded by several protected trees, and I also understand that it is on designated reserve land that will presumably need to be ungazetted before it gets sold off, incurring additional costs. In my view, this building can be economically refurbished for much less cost than pulling it down and rebuilding a new dance studio in the EA Networks Centre, and certainly for much less than the latest questionable estimate of 1.3 million. This would also save the wasted expense of having to recreate another space to replace one that already exists, works well and is well used. Car parking and egress at peak times can also be an issue at the EA Networks Centre. The proposed replacement dance space will be significantly smaller and less functional, less centrally located, will cost significantly more for groups to hire, and will not provide the same level of dedicated facilities that currently exist at Balmoral Hall. Its relocation will also likely cost more than will be gained by selling the land that Balmoral Hall sits on. And we assume that the new dance studio will also not incorporate a sprung floor, which is a key feature that makes Balmoral Hall so particularly well suited for dance activity. Balmoral Hall also has an existing sufficiently sized car park that is also well used by the public. In order to prepare for this public forum presentation, we submitted a Lagoima request with the Ashburton District Council in January, seeking all relevant information relating to Balmoral Hall's future and the detail of costs associated to refurbish it. Unfortunately, the information requested has been withheld by Council. It is not only disappointing that the Council have refused to supply the requested information, but in our view, the Council's response was both woefully inadequate and in contravention of the Lagoima Act. We have therefore made a formal complaint to the Ombudsman's Office and asked if they can assist us in extracting this information. HPMC has no particular objection to Council selling off the remainder of the former Polytech land to the east of Balmoral Hall. But we believe that from a community service perspective and from a heritage perspective, Balmoral Hall should remain and it should be refurbished as previously had been promised in the last long-term plan. Therefore, we recommend the following actions. Our preference is for Council just to get on and do the promised refurbishment of Balmoral Hall as it was budgeted, rather than going back out to consult with the public again on an issue which has already been previously agreed. However, if the Council are going to insist that this issue is reconsulted on as part of this year's LTP process, then we would suggest the following. 1, that Council conduct a heritage appraisal of Balmoral Hall by appropriately qualified heritage professional in order to definitively establish the heritage merits of the building. 2, Council should acknowledge in its LTP consultation that the existing building has significant community, social and cultural value and is well used by members of the public for a variety of uses, including as a base for the local dance community. 3, that Council release full details of both previously agreed refurbishment budgets of circa 484,000 and the proposed new costing of 1.3 million, so that the public can clearly see what is being proposed as part of the refurbishment costs and can comment on the extent of the refurbishment proposed. 4, that Council include a range of alternative lower cost financial options for the refurbishment of Balmoral Hall, rather than suggesting that the $1.3 million option is the only possible option for refurbishment. And 5, there are other possible alternatives to demolition which need to be explored. For example, investigating the possibility of allowing a community group, e.g. the local dance community, to take over ownership of the property and therefore responsibility for future maintenance of the hall. It is really disappointing that we are having to yet again make a complaint about the council's lack of openness and transparency in relation to the decision-making on community-owned assets, particularly so soon after our complaint about the decision to demolish Cavendish Chambers. Relitigating the previously agreed decision to refurbish Balmoral Hall opens up a very real possibility that this building will disappear in the very near future, meaning that yet another well-used and well-loved town centre community facility with significant heritage value will be lost to us forever. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nigel and Maxine. Councillors, we can take questions. I've just got a couple. Nigel, you're going with the council and you wanted information on the building.
Correct.
And we've responded to that, as I understand.
It has been responded to, yeah.
Yeah. So do you need more information over and above what we've
Yes,
already
well,
given?
we were only given one council memo from December last year. And essentially we were asking for the full detail. We asked for all information relating to the decision. And we were, in my view, that is, it is required to be responded to. And it was, as I say, it was woefully inadequate.
Have you responded back to say that or not?
No, I haven't. I mean, that Lagoima is a process that goes for 20 working days. If there is clarification required on what we were asking for, you can come back. You can ask for an extension. But at the end of that period, I'm not going to go back and keep going backwards and forwards asking for this and for that. The problem with us asking for information, we don't know what information you hold. So we can't ask for this and that when we don't know what's been going on. It's all hidden from us.
So let us check to see what you've got and
Okay.
if it's the request that you had.
Thanks, I'd appreciate it.
One of the things you talked about was for the dance group to take over the hall and then do the maintenance. Have you discussed that with the dance group?
No, I haven't. No, not specifically. But and that is a possibility. I think that could be explored. What that would, the advantage of that, is that it would mean there's no ongoing maintenance costs for council in the future, and it would allow the hall, the dance community to run their dance classes without cost. So it's just a suggestion. As I say, I haven't discussed that with Danceworks or anyone other than our group. That was a suggestion that came up through our group.
Okay. You also mentioned that the price of the upgrade instead of 400 something is a 1.3 something, and you talked about that's too expensive. Have you got an alternative price that what it should? How do you?
I haven't got it priced. You're right. But looking at what was proposed in the last long-term plan, which was that $484,000 budget, it included repaint, re-roofing, kitchen facilities, bathroom facilities, and so essentially, everything you would expect for a refurbishment. To be honest, when even that figure sounds quite high. I would imagine if, for example, a community group were to take over the building, they could do it for a lot cheaper than that. Particularly doing work themselves. I can't see where you could spend 1.3 million on it. I mean, you could, absolutely you can, but it seems ridiculous. I mean, for a timber framed building, single story, that is, got weatherboard and corrugated iron on the roof. I mean, it's about the same size of most of our houses here. Someone comes in and said, we're going to repaint and re-roof, and it's going to cost you $1.3 million. That seems absolutely excessive to me. As I say, we haven't been given the detail of this $1.3 million budget, what it includes, but I'm astounded at that figure.
Councillor Lovett.
Just asking if you're listing a building with the Historic Places Trust, is there a certain age a building has to be, or can any, what is the criteria there?
No, there is not a special age, but we're not trying to list it with Historic Places New Zealand.
Heritage
New Zealand. It's listing on the district plan for your heritage items. You have a long list of items, some of which don't exist any longer, some of which things that should be on there are missing, and we haven't had the opportunity to add in recent years. So that's where what we were talking about, listing on the district plan.
Right.
Further questions, councillors? Clarification? It does look like we're going out with, in the long-term plan, with a proposal for Balmoral Hall to do whatever with it, refurbish it or sell it. So there's two options there. Thank you for your presentation here, but you also need to submit to our long-term plan, and then when we have the hearings, present again what you've presented here, put your case at that time. So, but thanks very much for alerting to us now, your thoughts and feelings on the building, but there's still another process to go, and we're asking the whole community what they would like to do with Balmoral Hall. Two options, one's retain, one's sell. So we have not made a decision. We're talking to the community, so.
May I ask one further question?
Yes, please, Maxine.
Is it possible that we can have some breakdown on that 1.3 million? Because it seems extraordinary and it would certainly help understand the decision.
Right. Yeah, just talked to the Chief Executive. He said, yeah, they'll have a look at it. And if as long as it's not a sensitive quote with a business's named, then we can get something to you to break it down. We'll look at a way where we can do it without breaching any privacy. Yeah, so give you a bit more information as to the costings of how we got there.
It's the work to be done and what the costings were. We're not really particularly interested in who was going to do it, so that would be fine. Thank you.
You might not be, but the person who put that quote in might be. So we just need to protect them.
For all we care. We're not.
Yeah, well, that's fine, and that's probably what we will do.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Thank you. Public forum, confirmation of the minutes on page 3. Any alterations or additions of accuracy? Page 4 and 5. There's none there. Could I have someone move in a seconder that the minutes of the 21st February council meeting be taken as read and confirmed?
I'll move.
Councillor McMillan, Councillor Cameron. Any debate? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you. Next item is item number 5, and it's the receipt of the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee. Any discussion on the minutes, accurate or not? Councillor Cameron.
I see that I was present and I also had an apology. I was an apology.
You were an apology. We'll correct that. Thank you. Someone would like to move and second that we receive these minutes? Councillor Ellis, Councillor Todd. All in favour, please say aye. Next item, number 6, the Biodiversity Advisory Group. And again, we received these minutes. Discussion on whether the minutes are correct or not. Councillor Brown?
No, sorry, I just pushed.
Aye. No, accurate or, yeah, accurate. Councillor Brown would like to move. Seconder, Councillor Lovett. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Item number 7, into reports, the draft community engagement policy. Look at Mel, Mark and Tony. Anything further you'd like to add to your report that we haven't got in front of us?
There's nothing further to add, thank you.
So we could go to questions, councillors. Councillor Wilson.
On page 22 of the how the council will engage with the community, I'm interested to see that it says participatory democracy may be used when decisions on proposals of high significance are to be considered. I'm unsure how you participatory democracy as a new catchword when we have participatory democracy where you vote your councillors in and they listen to the concerns of the community and make a decision. So I'm not sure, how does that fit into the process?
I think what you're describing is representative democracy. Participatory democracy is more where a community organisation or a group is almost coming up with the decision sort of for council, if you like, and going through a process to get to that point. So it's a much more active, engaged process with the groups who are involved in that decision.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, through the chair. This is a very general question, but what other policies are going out for consultation? A long time
alongside the long-term plan? It seems like there's going to be a lot. Will this just get kind of gobbled up in all the consultation process? Or are we expecting people to submit on this? Or
Yes, you're right. That's sort of the cycle that we go through in terms of the long-term plan. So we do have a number of other policies going out alongside the plan. This is one of them. There will be, in terms of the information available, there will be sort of a separate box on the website that people can drill into to get to that information. But yeah, you're right, essentially.
and supplementary, and then obviously if people submit, the hearings are held at the same time as the long-term plan hearings, is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Councillor Todd?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under page 14, under climate change, could you give me examples of 1.1 to 1.4 where these things will come into play? You know, could 1.1 and 1.4 be used to maybe restrict certain developments or put constraints on projects? Like, what's your thinking on those four items?
I don't think it's a matter of examples. It's more a matter of how we use the policy to assess what's significant. So this is another criteria that we're suggesting to include that would be basically used as a to assess the significance. So it's just part of that assessment process, and we're encouraging that to be included as part of that process.
Councillor Wilson?
Under Schedule 1 on page number 31, strategic assets. I understand the investments being strategic, yes, and then in the drinking water space, how does a network which has dual usage, and some of it is I'm referring to the Montalto water supply, which has a stock water was its basis, but over time it has turned into a non-compliant drinking water one. So has that become a strategic asset after it is compliant, or because it's in a funny is the word I'd use, place at the moment as to where it sits, because obviously we have to have compliant drinking water, but we're in discussions with that community as to where it goes, and if it becomes a strategic asset, that triggers a lot of reasons about the passing on, and that's what I'm just passing, if that community wishes to take it over, maybe we've made it a strategic asset, which makes it particularly complicated.
Thank you, through the chair. I guess the key part to the way in which we've worded drinking water and wastewater is the infrastructure as a whole. So if it were the entire network that were to be moved on or change the ownership structure of, that would automatically trigger this this process. However, with a specific supply, as you're talking, I'd imagine that it would be very targeted consultation and engagement that we would be doing with those that were directly affected.
Councillor Cameron?
I think it's on page 31, looking at the strategic assets. It is on page 31. An increase or decrease in ownership or control of 50% or more of elderly persons' housing stock. Can you just help me understand, that is a strategic asset. What does that mean? So you've got to sell 50% before you need to trigger engagement. Have I understood that correctly? It seems a hell of a lot of the strategic asset to sell. I would have thought you would have said to sell 20% or 10%.
Through the chair, yes. So we've had that 50% threshold carried on from the previous policy. I mean, it's certainly council's discretion if they wanted to change the threshold of when it would trigger the need for consultation in this way or not. But at the point in time in which we were developing this, it was deemed that council wanted some degree of flexibility should opportunities arise, as they have done in the past down in Mona Square.
Without consulting with the community.
Yes.
That's what this is saying, because I think if you're selling 50% or 49% of your elderly person's housing stock, and would you or would you not be signalling that you want to get out of elderly person's housing?
Through the chair, this is almost look at this as like your fallback line of defence. So from a consultation perspective on the strategic assets, certainly if we're looking to change the level of service, and that may be a 20 or 30%, I'd like to think that through an LTP or through an annual plan we are signalling that to our community and having those conversations. But this is your fallback defence should you not have done that.
Can I ask the Chief Executive a question, please? Yep. How do we change that to 70, like if you sell 30%, Ask the Mayor,
right now.
right now. I would like to change that to a higher threshold so that we're not signalling that we sell 49%, we don't have to consult, which is what.
You could do it right now. This document's going out for consultation. So through the hearing process, you could ask submitters what they think whether 50% is right. And at the end of the consultation process, you could change that figure to 70%. So have I got that right?
Through the chair, yes and no. Ideally, if you wanted to go out with a different number, I would suggest going out with that different number now, and on the chance that you don't get someone that submits around this, and then it makes it harder for you to change it at that point in time because you haven't had the conversation with the community with that number in mind.
Can I ask another question?
Just one,
Yeah.
just in a second. Hamish?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and the question is an interesting one because this council not too long ago had quite a vigorous debate about getting completely out of elderly persons housing because they didn't feel that ratepayers' money should subsidise that activity, and that debate was interesting, and it sort of collides on the issue of where the bottom line threshold is. Nothing is to stop council selling or increasing its portfolio. All this means is the threshold for thorough consultation and engagement. So that's what the strategic assets does. It doesn't prevent council from making decisions in the future. It's really defining a bottom line process given the extent of the change that might be being contemplated.
I think I understand that correctly, but I would think that I would like to consult at a higher threshold, being someone that likes to consult, and get the community engagement. I would like to consult at a higher threshold, but I don't know what the will is around the table. But I would think that if we're selling 30% of elderly persons housing, that requires community consultation, or rather than 50%, it's almost like we're signalling we're getting out of it.
Yes.
This would only trigger consultation. If you want to consult anyway, you can.
Of course, but I'm getting into debate now, but we do fall back onto the policy when we discuss it. So I would like the policy to be
Why don't you
clear.
ask your councillors if they would like that threshold changed?
Is there any
Could I just make
support
one-
for that around the table?
So just before that debate ensues, which is clearly your debate to have, but this is an increase or a decrease. So if you want to put a higher threshold, because in your mind you're contemplating engagement for a decrease, it also means that you're setting a bottom line threshold for engagement if you decide to increase the portfolio. So you've just got to balance what you're trying to do. And I think also, as Tony has advised, if there was to be a significant change to the level of service in the assessment of our experts, which is Tony, then she will recommend engagement anyway, as opposed to to the statement that we'll just collapse back to the policy and this will be all we'll do. That isn't what will actually happen. If there's to be sale or increase at a different level, we would still assess it under the issue of the changed level of service. This is just another bottom line, if you like, through the lens of strategic assets. But the level of service would start to impact, I imagine, prior to a 50% increase or a 50% decrease.
I'll go to Richard, and then if you wanted to ask the council if you wanted to change, I'll come back to you, Caroline. Councillor Wilson?
It's around page number 29, impact on climate change impact. How do we assess if there's a high level of impact on the environment or not environmentally sustainable? That's a very open to debate, because some people's impact is anything that causes any increase in carbon is a high impact. So just, if I build a new building, to some people that is an impact because you're using concrete, therefore more thefts and go off, so therefore you're causing an impact. So how do we assess if it's high or it's medium or it's low? Is there a set criteria? Is it the volume? Is it size? What is it, rather than just a perception? Because that's open to perception. And
You can
my other
answer that.
question, what? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, we'll get answer that question first.
I don't think there's a set criteria. It's more of an assessment. I mean, we potentially could develop some more detailed work behind this. Sorry, is there something you?
I was just going to point you to page, make sure I've got the right one, 32 of the agenda. And in there is actually the assessment tool that we use. And so right now the criteria that's being applied to this one is in and around the climate resilience plan, and whether what the decision is being sought to be made is actually in line and cognizant of that. If it's not, if it's quite out of step with what we've signalled through that climate resilience plan and which stems from the climate change policy, then that would be factoring into that assessment tool.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, and another question, probably similar relating to it. We have issues around effects. It's under Mana Whenua, consulting with Mana Whenua, and it talks around with land and water. I totally understand water because the values of the water, but land, if we're talking about freehold land, isn't there a difference between perhaps public land, which is, you know, in public ownership, and water? I understand water bodies, that's quite clear, but when you get to freehold land, that's quite a different place, isn't it? And if you're consulting with Mana Whenua on private land, you know, I'm interested to see how the...
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, you're correct. But we would be talking to Mana Whenua with this lens on when it's to do with council business, and that wouldn't involve council property. If it's a private landowner doing private work on their property, that's not what this policy is looking to capture. This is about but making sure that we've got eyes wide open across all the different factors that can affect our decision making for our portfolios as a council.
Councillor Cameron, you happy to leave that at 50%?
I would like to test the mood round the table.
Okay.
I do take the point that when you, of course, if you purchase or acquire more elderly persons housing, then you also have to go out to consultation. But given the cost of that, I would think we're going out for, e.g., Balmoral Hall, which we just heard very persuasive argument, and there it's $1 million. Well, we'd like to spend more than that if we're buying 30% of our elderly persons housing stock. So I think regardless either way, I think that's more of a reasonable threshold.
Would you like to move something?
I would like to move that we change the community services to an increase or decrease in ownership or control of 70%, increase of more than 30% or a decrease of more than 30%. And then that would trigger consultation.
Do you want to replace the 50 with 30?
Correct.
So you've moved that. Do we have
Can
a
I
second?
just, that makes sense, doesn't it? That's what yeah.
Yeah. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ellis. Seconded. Yes. Can you speak to the motion?
Well, I have, but I think if you consider, if you go, there's many ways to look at this. You can go from the personal way, like the older people that are living in our homes. There's a significant, in our elderly persons housing, there's a significant number of them, possibly more than 100. So in that way, you're triggering off more consultation. If you look at it from a financial perspective with regards to the investment and the dollars, you're looking at a significant investment there. So that should be consultation at least in 30% at least. And then if you look at it a community involvement point of view, elderly persons housing stock, there's a significant interest in that in our community and how we service their requirements. I think that should go out for elderly for consultation. So financially, number of people, and also community involvement. So from those three aspects, I think it's essential that we engage at a lower threshold than we have put in the policy from my view. And I think if we thought about it carefully and we compared other issues in here, like what we're going at for long term, the dollars alone are more in the 30% of housing than what we're going out for long term and what we're consulting with the community with. So I'd really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Speakers for or against that motion? With there being none, no right of reply required. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried, I think. Carried. Yep, 30% is it. Right, back to question time. Any further questions on anything else other than that? No. There's a motion, recommendation in front of us. Someone like to move and second? It will lapse if no one does anything.
I'll move.
Councillor McMillan, Councillor Ellis, and that the recommendation is the council approves the draft community engagement policy 2024 for consultation alongside the long-term plan. Open for debate. Speakers for or against? Councillor Cameron.
I speak in favour of the motion. I think we need a policy, and if I've learned anything over my very short career in this role, everything falls back to the policy. So I think if we have a policy that we're all happy with, it's essential, and I think this seems to read reasonably clearly. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
I speak in support of the policy, and I hope that by putting it for consultation, we get the public to buy into it, which gives added faith in democracy, because that's what this is about, giving everybody their say, but in the right level and context rather than just political views of the day. It needs to be whole public's input into it.
Further speakers for or against? If not, want to write a reply? Councillor McMillan.
Yes, I will. So this is just a 3-year turnover of this policy again. I hope it doesn't get lost in all the other consultations we're doing at the same time, and that people take time to read it and submit to it.
Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Next item is item number 8, EA Network Centre and Surrounding Land 30-year draft master plan. We have Mel, Mark, there'll be a team of us here actually. Mel, Mark, Richard and Sarah. Anything further to add to the paper we have in front of us?
No, we're happy to take questions.
Take questions. Hamish?
Just to commend the second paragraph of the summary to councillors as you consider this draft plan, and we've seen with other long-term plans that they can be easily confused with resource allocation to get the work done and create expectations that aren't ever intended by the plan. But I think that second bullet point sums up really nicely what a 30-year master plan is trying to do. It's highlighting things that may occur, and it's trying to prevent development that might limit those options in the future. That's what this plan is all about. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Questions, councillors? I've one in the page 35 talks about the risks and of the option 1, and the consultation may be overshadowed by the long-term plan consultation, which may have reduced feedback, because we're consulting on quite a bit of stuff with the long-term plan. Does this really need to be in there is my question. All the other 30-year development plans, like the Domain, we did it separately. It got its own consultation, and there's a risk there that it gets buried, but there's also the comment that it gets extra attention as well. It's just your comment. You're not going to comment?
Could I answer that?
Yeah, okay.
Sarah may well have something further to add. This is a judgment call around the timing. So if you recall the development of the master plan and some of the ideas that were highlighted in that master plan were clearly resource issues for the long-term plan process as well. And so the judgment call is, well, when do you have the conversation with the community? And our strong view in the end was that had we consulted on the master plan prior to the LTP, you would be creating some sort of expectation in the community, and it would have been a very strange LTP conversation. It sounded like you were having it for the second time in the space of just a few months. And then conversely, you don't do the Network Centre master plan for another year or something, and yet you've been having conversations with the community about projects in the long-term plan that are consistent with the rationale and thinking that were developed in the master plan. So the sweet spot we felt was consulting at the same time, and yes, there might be a tension that wouldn't otherwise be there, but then to us that's a celebration of the democratic process. we certainly don't want other issues in the long-term plan to swamp the value and importance of the Air Networks master plan. That's more of a concern to us than the additional attention it might attract, and that's why we'll be working hard to ensure this has enough of a spotlight on it that it will get attention. But it's just a judgment call, Mr. Mayor. We could see risks and pitfalls regardless of how we approach this piece of work.
Yeah, thanks for that. And if this goes out for consultation, the answer that's going to come back, I'm going to say, is yes. You're going to get a yes, because there's lots of great stuff in here to enhance it. I don't see any costings around it in here, or do I? And the timelines.
Through the chair, based on timelines, costings can change significantly, and for that reason we haven't done that. Within the LTP process, that's set, I guess, the timelines. It's provided the costing of the projects that are intended to go out to the community for consultation, and intended, if it goes through the consultation, to be part of our work program within the next 10 years. Beyond that, we would be revisiting the master plan once adopted every 3 years as part of the LTP to see which projects we think are now the sort of timing and get accurate costing then and there. So yes, it's purely because we didn't want to set expectations that there was budgetary provision beyond the 10 years for projects that haven't been gone through that next level of interrogation.
So what onus does this council, next councils, future councils have over the next 30 years to do anything in this plan?
No, there is no requirement unless a project is part of the LTP and it goes to community consultation. What we don't want is thinking that Project A is a fantastic idea, but, well, we put that in the wrong place and now we're going to dig up something to put Project C in, and that was all wrong. So the intention is to have a plan that incorporates as many ideas as possible using the footprint we have available, and looking at it as a whole picture, that if everything was done in one point in the future, there's no jarring in terms of, oh, well, there's a field there, but that needs to be a car park, or vice versa. So it's a long-term strategic document to enable projects and project planning to be done well.
And that makes good sense. Yeah. Questions? Councillor Wilson.
It goes forward from the sort of discussion you've just had. Why couldn't we not strengthen the wording in paragraph 2 to show that instead of it, the draft plan includes a number of proposals that may incur in this area? Well, they won't incur. They're aspirational until the council has consulted and made a decision. So it may occur is open, is quite a may occur. If I say are aspirational and will require substantial funding, it adds a more level of comfort to many ratepayers to say, well, okay, that's got to be done, but these hurdles have to be jumped over. May is not a great hurdle to me, so I'm just concerned that, why would we not strengthen the wording to...
Mr. Mayor, we're trying to be neutral. So we're not trying to say aspirational and expensive, because that has a connotation that will drive feedback, I imagine, in a particular direction. We're simply trying to say, here's a 30-year master plan. These things may occur, and we're trying to prevent other development that will hinder this pathway that we see. But it has to be subject to resource allocation. And we've got our own experience through the domain development plan. We developed the 30-year plan. It came time to do a high priority project in that plan, and we didn't feel able to allocate the resource to do that. Therefore, it hasn't gone ahead. But equally, we haven't done any other work down there which is counter to the plan. We're just not proceeding at the moment because resource hasn't been allocated. So that's all we're trying to signal. We're not trying to frighten the community. This is so aspirational, we're never going to do it because it's going to be really, really expensive. That seems and I know you're not quite saying that, Councillor, and that's taking the argument to an extreme, but we are just simply trying to say, here are some projects that may occur. If the plan goes through the consultation, gets support, then that's the general direction of travel. It will always be subject to resource allocations. That doesn't happen through a master plan. It happens via long-term plan and annual plan budget, resource allocation processes, and that's where the resources will be prioritised and applied by whatever council is considering it in the future.
Councillor Cameron, questions?
Thank you, and this follows on from the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor's sort of question, and it's to Chief Executive. When we're consulting for the long-term plan, which is a lengthy document and complicated document, and we're also consulting with the strategic assets and on the EA network plan, how are we going to, like, is everybody going to get a fair suck of the sab, if you like, if you're doing that? Like, it's going to be very confusing, a lot of bits of paper and a lot of confusing, and how are we going to delineate between long-term plan, EA Master Centres plan, and other plans?
Yeah.
Is that not going to be sort of complicated?
Yes, it's complicated and it's not perfect. I accept that argument. But equally, we think it's the right thing to do, given all the circumstances, and therefore our obligation, our work, is to highlight to the best that we can the individual policies and the master plan and the LTP at the time of consultation, so that we can give the very best chance for people to make a contribution in the area of their passion and interest. But yes,
Can I ask one more additional question? We're going around to the halls of the community and, you know, into Ashburton and doing focus groups and chats and that with people. So will we be taking this policy out as well for people to address this policy? Like, how are we going to ensure optimal consultation is my question.
Yep, so I'll let someone else answer that more specifically, but just remember that the development of this plan has involved extensive consultation. So it's not like we've just dreamt this up and are now sort of putting it out there. This is that engagement process has already been involved. But what the mechanics of the separateness of the process from here on in, perhaps Tony or Mark can answer that.
So I guess the key portal will be our website. So there'll be focuses on the long-term plan and the 5 key issues that are part of that, plus everything else associated with that. There'll be a focus on the policies that we're consulting on, and there'll be a separate focus on the EA Networks Master Plan. So separate sections on that in terms of all of the different ways that we'll be consulting on the LTP process. I mean, there's a range of mechanisms, as you've highlighted, in terms of meetings, community meetings, stakeholder meetings. All of that information will be made available to people as part of that process. We'll also have a range of promotional type tools, so advertising, information in newspapers, website, Facebook, all that sort of thing, so that there's a whole package of work behind the LTP that will be promoting everything around it. But I mean, I do appreciate there is a lot that's going out at the same time. Yep.
Sarah?
Through the chair, just to answer the question of Councillor Wilson, there's a separate document on Stella, which is the draft consultation document, and on page 2 of that, this is the Word version, so it's not the sort of laid out version, but it's currently bold and underlined, and it talks about the process with regards to the individual projects identified within the draft plan are not currently funded. When the need exists and funding is available, the identified projects will be included in the future long-term plan or annual plan, and community consultation will occur as part of this process. So it's bold and as big as possible. That will be forefront of the consultation document that is submitted, as opposed to the report proper that you're reading.
Councillor Bryan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure who can answer this one, but with a 30-year plan, it's in direction. Sorry about it. It's in direction. If we find that the direction is not correct, can we change the 30 plan?
Sorry, I just missed the key word.
I think the answer is yes.
It's a living document.
It's a living document. You can revisit a 30-year plan at any point, and in fact, this council can't bind every future council to exactly what its view of facility development is. So a future council can indeed revisit it, but they would need to do so carefully, and our advice at the time would better highlight the process that has been involved in developing this plan, including an extensive consultation process with the community. And in fact, we've heard in the public forum how parts of our community like to rely on the fact that there's been a consultation and an agreed outcome on certain projects in the previous LTP that is going to challenge a future council to make that change. So the process is not to be undertaken lightly, but it is certainly possible to change in the future.
And that's what I mean, because it's 30 years. 30 years from now, I'm not sure I'm still here. And we see it in
Question?
oh, sorry, question. That's it. Thank you.
Councillor McMillan?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm looking at the consultation or the draft consultation document, page 5 and 6. Is there any way, you've got all the projects listed, some of them are currently happening, like the Oak Grove steps, etc. Is there any way that you could kind of almost put a little subtitle in, or line them up in the order that they were proposing to be in the LTP, but put the ones that